All versions of the ACC9 can be found at the aircadetleague.com/library/forums website. Now that we have our data setup sheet done, we're going to take a look at the use of the revenue and expense journals. So just click on your main menu button, and under transactions we can go to the revenue journal. So the revenue journal, we're going to first look at its layout before we actually get into how we do entries. The different pieces that are shown here, first off we have the little table here to explain transaction types, 6 different types that are selectable in your menus. Nice little feature that's been added is a calculator button, and if you click on the calculator, it will pop up your calculator for quick use, so you don't have to go searching for it. One of the things that we have as well is there are like almost 500 lines in the journal, and sometimes you get down to the end of the year and you don't want all those blank lines. So we have a hide unused lines, and you'll see it takes a little think and it will hide all the unused lines. And simply click again and it will bring them all back. So the journal itself is kind of broken into 2 sides, the left side and the right side. And it's the right hand side is known as the categorization of money, where the left hand side is actually just your journal entries. You know, the division between the left and right side is this gray column known as the proof of category allocation. So let's take a look at how we categorize money. So the first section is the 4,000s, which are the donations, grants, and others. Self-explanatory as to what type of monies those are. Now, as you'll see, there are some edible fields in this box. So in the case of 4030, which is donations from other service clubs, we have given you subcategory capability that you can edit. So simply just click on the edit button and fill in the fields. As well, within this category, there are still these green editable buttons for different main category fields that you can do. The next section is the 4200 section, which is for gaming and lottery fundraising. In this case, they're all editable fields that you can put in for any gaming or lotteries that you do. Section 4400 is other fundraising. Now, again, these are all editable sections. The main ones that we see for a lot of the squadrons is doing tag days or bottle drives, this idea. But again, you can go through and you can edit any of these sections. The next section is 4600, which is miscellaneous revenues, anything other than government. So this would be, as you can see in the top is here, money that you've collected for an activity, investment in interests, so forth and so on. And again, the last 4 sections in here are edible. And finally, fundings and recoveries from government. And these are broken into 3 subcategories here. We have federal source, provincial territorial source, and municipal regional source. And these would be the fundings that you would get from D&D, any of the funding you would get from the province, or if you're a local community. So that covered kind of the categories, and I cannot stress enough that you need to spend time going through and really getting familiar with these categories. So let's take a look at an actual transaction. So for one, let's say we just do a regular deposit, and we'll just give it a reference of the deposit number, which we'll call it 123. Now, date format you've got to be very careful about, okay? And the reason that we do this is that a lot of the macros rely on the date format to be the same at all times. So for today, we're going to put in that we're on the 21st of November in the year 2021. And let's say our income this time is a Legion donation. And in this case, the Legion is not the sponsor. And our Legion has been very nice and gave us $5,000. Now you'll note as soon as I put that in on the left side, the proof category went red. That means now it says you have to balance this from the right side. Okay? Now, as we said, the Legion's not the official sponsor, but they are a non-sponsor veterans organization. So I'm going to put in that they gave us $5,000 in the category. And as soon as we do that, we see the proof category goes back to normal. Now another feature that we have as well is, let's again put in a regular deposit. And we're going to call this deposit 124 this time. And we're going to put it in on the 22nd of November. And we're going to say that we did a walkathon and we made $500 in the walkathon. Now, one of the first things you would do is let's create a walkathon category. So this would fall under other fundraising. So let's just move over a little further. And under other fundraising, right now there's not really anything there that talks to walkathon. So we're going to do an edit and we're going to put in walkathon. And we'll update. And then we now have a walkathon. And we will put in $500 income from the walkathon. Now, a little added feature, we're going to slide back here. It is definitely a very wide spreadsheet. Is what if you were giving tax donation receipts for walkathon donations? If your squadron set it that anybody that donated $25 or more got a tax receipt. Well, this new column that we've added in is the issued tax receipt amount from that deposit. Well, in this case, not everybody got a tax receipt because we had like some $5 and $10 donations. So let's say you gave out $300 of tax donation receipts. Now, why we do this is that when we have to do the Revenue Canada document, the T3010, or in Quebec, the TP985, we have to say in that document how much dollar value of tax receipts we've issued. Now, generally, that would have been done in the older version of the ACC9 under column 4070, tax receipted donations. But this really made it hard for squadrons then to do budgeting, because what would happen is out of that $500, I would have put $300 under column 4070, and then I would only put $200 under the walkathon. So it looked like the walkathon didn't make as much money. So with the new version now, we just declare how much we have under this new column. Now, we proceed through the month, we put all our different entries in, and eventually you get your bank statement for this month. So the November bank statement shows up sometime in December, and we have to do reconciliation. So we take that bank statement and we see, yep, there are our two deposits. So all you do in this column is make a check mark, and you'll see that it changes the color. Same will go for the second one here. Now we have stated that those things have been reconciled by a bank deposit. Throughout the year, you're going to be putting all these entries in, you're going to be reconciling, and at the end of your fiscal year, once you get your final bank statement, you can look and see what didn't get reconciled. And it's very important to note that, because that information has to transfer over to the start of the next year's ACC9. So now, we've looked at the revenue journals now. Well, we're going to take a look at the expense journal. So over to the expense journal, and it's fairly much the same. Okay, you have the same type of categorization, left or right hand side categorization, and you have the journal entry on the left hand side. Okay, again, you need to really learn the categorizations. So the first category in for expenses are administrative and operating expenses. And, the titles are pretty self-explanatory. You go through and, that's how you use those categories. The next section is Squadron Cadet Activities Expenses. Okay. Again, in here we have a lot of different menu items that you can modify for your need if it's not covered by the existing categories. Then we have the next one, which is expenses for gaming and lottery fundraising. Now, this would be any financial outlays that you have to do for setting up a lottery draw or in any of the gaming type stuff. So if you were doing breakout tickets, Nevada tickets is another name for them, where you would actually pay for the tickets first and then you reap the benefits from selling them. So in this case, you would see the outlay of the initial cost there. The next section, we went a little farther, are the other expenses. Now, I do suggest that you try to keep this to other expenses to minimum if possible. But the other expenses are the things that do not fall into those first categories. If you happen to have a squadron clothing line, the outlay of money for that is included in here. The initial supplies out for canteen, for instance. Okay, so very much like the revenue, you need to go through and really learn these categories. Now, let's go through an actual transaction. So our transaction type is, we're going to write a check. The check number is check number 300. And again, when you put the date in, make sure that you get it in the right format of 2-digit for day, 2-digit for month, and 4-digit for year. So we're going to look at details here. So let's say we bought a new printer. And the amount for that is, we bought it for $120. Again, as you see, the proof category went red. Now, if you know from your receipt the HST, GST, or PST, QST that you're using, this is where you would fill it in. Okay, so let's say it was $11.40 for HST, and then you pull up your calculator and figure out what your percentage of that tax was for GST. Now, it's office equipment printer, so it's simple enough. As we go over here and we say, yeah, there's the 120, and again, you see the proof category has disappeared. Now, one of the things, and a majority of squadrons only have one bank account, but in some cases we have squadrons with multiple bank accounts, and this was something you had to set up in your data setup. So, you can, this button here would say, okay, if you click that button, it's going to fill in all the default account, the main account, all the way down through. And I'm not going to click it, it takes a while for it to fill in. But in each transaction, you can pick which account you're using. And this is important because the ACC9 then, calculates the money per account when you're dealing with this. Okay? So, again, you get your bank statement in, and when the bank statement arrives, you see that check's been cleared, and when you select your reconcile, it changes the color of that line. So that's the basic general usage of the journals. One final thing I want to show you is how to properly transfer money between accounts. This has led to a lot of unbalanced ACC9s in the past, so we're just going to go over the basic of how to do this. So the scenario we're going to go through is that we're going to transfer $1,000 out of our checking account and put it into a GIC. So we'll start with is that this is going to be something done within the bank, so we'll just call it a BK. Doesn't really have a reference number, so we'll just put not applicable. So we put in the date, in the same format as we've been doing all along. And we'll call it a transfer to GIC. So we say we want to transfer $1,000. Now, it starts from the main account. So you would select main account in this case. Now to categorize this money, it doesn't fall under the normal categories. So if you slide way over to the right, oops, went a little too far, you'll see this final column that has transfer between accounts or adjustments. So we put in $1,000 here. And as you see, our proof category now is satisfied. But it's very important when you transfer between accounts, for every transaction you show in one journal, it has to be seen in the other journal. So let's now go back to the revenue journal. And in the revenue journal, we're just doing it again, just pick a bank. We're not going to give it a reference. And we put in the date. And we say transfer from checking. And we put in the amount. And here we have to make sure we put it into the investment account. Again, slide way over to the right. And we have that same transfer between accounts, and we put in the $1,000. We have now done a transfer between accounts and kept it balanced in both journals. Thank you very much.